Two experts in ICF.
Yeah.
Decades of experience. One podcast.
Yeah.
Two hosts with a lot to say.
Look, I cannot sit through a struggle. I gotta get up and hustle. I gotta push through the pain, cause really that's how you build muscle.
Welcome to the Build with ICF podcast with your hosts, Trevor Brown and Heather Herring Brown. Yep, they're a package deal. With over 20 years of ICF installation experience, Trevor can throw down some expertise on sales, marketing, and training. On the other side of the table sits Heather, aka the girl boss, and she's earned the title as the owner of an award-winning ICF construction company, a drafting and design company specializing in ICF. And the numbers? With a master's in accounting, she does that too. Sleeves up, boots on. This is the Build with ICF podcast.
I don't want nothing for free. I'm here to work. Been through the dirt. I've been through the dirt. Yeah.
And we're back.
Boom. Just like that.
Just like that.
We're back to when the phone rings. As soon as we get on,
As
soon as we go live, the phone rings. Yeah, we're back. Episode 20.
Yeah.
Flying through them.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Keep.
And we've got a lot of people lined up here in the next the next week.
This is a big recording week. Yeah, this is a big recording week. We got a bunch of people kind of piled up and kicking it off with another one of the questions that we've been getting asked about a lot, and it kind of parlays into what we had done in the past, or talked about how to pick a contractor, do's and don'ts, DIY, pitfalls. All these things kind of came back to training, and we talk about the importance of training and finding a trained contractor, or getting yourself trained, just having the knowledge of how to do how to do the job correctly, the do's and don'ts, right? And as far as somebody that is in the industry actively, probably known industry wide among all the different brands as the guy that's really, really pushing the education and installation training side of it, is Alfonso from Fox Block. We are super stoked to have him on here. So thank you for coming on, Alfonso.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate the opportunity.
No, I think it's great. We were talking with you at World of Concrete and kind of going over how Fox Block is, I believe the leader. We kind of been joking because we had Mike Dalzell on and we got you on, and we're going to have Randy Daniels on here in a couple of days. And everyone's going to start thinking that we're in bed with the Fox Block guys because we got so many of you guys on, but you guys really are doing it right. And I mean, I think to your credit, you talk to people from any of the different block companies and manufacturers around, they bring up your name as a guy that's really, really pushing the training part. So let's back up a little bit. Tell us how you got into the business, how long you've been in, and kind of your track to get to where you are today.
Well, before I get started on that, talking about training, I commend you guys for what you're doing. Nobody else is, and we need this in the industry. So kudos to you, and I commend you for doing this. I've listened to some of the podcasts, and it's great information. It all falls under training. So thank you for doing what you're doing.
We love it.
As far as when I got started, I've been doing ICF for almost 11 years now. Started with a different brand here in Oklahoma City. I worked with them for about 4 years. And I was missing, the personal contact and the job site visit and the hands-on. So I was lucky enough to be able to come on board with Fox Blocks, and I've been with them going on 5 years now.
Yeah. When you came on with them, was that how did it kind of go into were you just hired on as a territory manager? Were you hired right into the training, or how did you kind of get to be so active or so, involved in the training side of it?
Well, I'm just a regional advisor like all my other colleagues. I cover Arkansas, Oklahoma, Texas, New Mexico, Arizona, and Colorado. We came out with this new training program, and I love to be in front of people. I love to teach people. So I just grabbed a hold of it and ran with it. Anytime I have an opportunity to be in front of people and share the word, I do it. So that's what I've been doing.
Well, and it's been great. Like, I mean, I know I've got to see you speak at several of the different events, but like with the ICFMA, you've been involved with the NRMCA and their trainings and stuff like that. How have you seen the growth of on the ICF training side with some of these other organizations and some of the work that you do, even just outside of the direct Fox Block connection, but into these organizations that I think are doing a good job of getting the word out there as well?
So I think as an industry, we're doing well. I think we could do much better. I'm sure at some point we'll talk about the training program of Fox Blocks, where it's so encompassing of the whole process, all the way up to experts installing over 9,000 blocks and projects. So in general, I think we could be doing better. I do like the program that we have created so far.
Let's go into
I was just going to say that. Let's
roll right into that, because I agree with you. I think that when we were talking about this and kind of going over it at World of Concrete, I think that, there needs to be levels of this, throughout the industry. I think it's a great model for people to do. We did a recent training in our warehouse that, I try to train it pretty open, not specific to the brand necessarily, but because we do use multiple brands. I had people in my training class that I think we had 5 different brands, customers that were going to install 5 different brands, including some Fox Block. And we had people that traveled to our training just to learn about ICF in general. So I think I love the idea of, I won't spoil it. I'll let you kind of tell it, but I love the model that you guys have. So why don't you take us through what you're doing at Fox, and we can kind of talk later about how I think we could work that into some other places.
Yeah. So what's interesting is that I've been getting more and more phone calls from either engineers, architects, or GCs asking their installers or the people bidding on their projects to show proof of their experience. And we're the only ones who have a system that would go from primary installer. Next step is master. No, I'm sorry, journeyman, then master, and then elite. So the primary installer class, it's a 6 hours online class you can take, go from A to Z, the whole process of building with ICF. Or we can do the one I do in person, which is a 4-hour class. Once you get that under your belt and you start doing projects, you can step up the levels, and it makes a big difference when you're talking to a homeowner or a GC, and you can show them, look, here's a training program that I've been through, and shows kind of accountability of my experience. For example, master, I've installed 15 Fox Blocks projects or 4,500 blocks. Well, that's a lot of weight when you're talking to a homeowner or GC, versus just telling them. So the more accountability we have on the industry, the more comfortable builders who have never experienced ICF would more likely take the step or the leap, because there is some type of accountability. Okay, I'm going to hire this guy. Fox Blocks tells me that they've installed 15 projects. So that says something, versus the alternative, which right now is nothing.
Yeah, it's what we talked about on our last episode is, it's not extremely difficult, but there are things that you have to do in a certain order. And so like your training class goes into that and teaches them. And I love how you've got the different levels that say, we've done this much, and having that accountability, like you said, is important.
And it's not just we've done a certain amount of projects. We're gonna quiz you and test you on some of the terms that we feel need to be understood by somebody who's installing this amount of blocks. It's not I've done 15 projects. It's you have to go through a test on our website to go to the next level, and that's how the accountability.
Oh, I like that.
We talked about the accountability and the and it was the number one listener question. It was the first question we did on the show because it was the question we get the most from our, from our DMs and our people emailing us as they say, okay, great. I've been listening to podcasts. I love it. I'm totally sold on ICF. Now, how do I choose which guy I'm going to use? And a lot of times they're like, well, I got this one guy that, down the street and Jim Bob, and he says he's been doing it for 15 years and, he does one every year. And I haven't, seen many of them. And we always talk about just the accountability of like even just following up and saying, okay, do some due diligence, like look this guy up, ask him for some references. That's one of my biggest thing I say is if you have a guy that like you said, there's no way to prove, like you don't have a proof. You just have this guy's word. I've, been in the business for 23 years. I've seen things go really bad with people that are, if they would have just Googled the guy or just asked for a reference or something and said, and just like you talk to people and they're like, oh yeah, that guy that he did a job over here and it fell down, and I did this one and it took him 3 years to do a job. Should take him 3 weeks. And like all this stuff that comes out after the fact. And I think what's great is you guys are basically documenting and almost making it more official by putting something in writing and something where they actually go through a test. And I think that's like literally tier one of like verification. Like, do you have training? What level of training do you have? And you guys can go even farther than, I've taken a class. You're like, I've taken a class and I've achieved this level and I hope to achieve this level. And it's something that all our listeners listening right now, when we go back to the last episode where we were talking about how to pick a contractor, this is a huge way to pick a contractor.
Another thing I wanted to mention, when you get to the master level and the elite, these are wallet cards that are metal, silver color, for master, but it's a metal card, and a gold one for elite. And this is as a pride. These guys put this in their wallet and they're proud of pulling that out and showing a GC. Look at my credentials. Mm-hmm. And the other thing I wanted to mention is when we came out with the new system, there's guys who were already elite contractors for us. And, they've been doing it for so long. At this point, they sometimes don't want to take the time to start from scratch on all the levels. Mm-hmm. And it's been hard. But as we've been able to get these guys on the computer and start doing the courses, even the most experienced guys call me back and say, hey, I'm glad I went through the course because there's things I still learn from your class.
100%. I'll take I've been doing this over 20 years. I will take every course I can. Like I did a Nudura course. I'll do, when I see something come up to say it's an online training or something, because I tell this every course, and I've taught a lot of these courses. And when I'm teaching the course, I tell everybody, I go, guys, I'm standing up here as one installer that does this the way I do it. There's a lot of opinion in how I do this. I try to be open to like, hey, I've heard guys do it this way, and I try to tell you different ways. But chances are you get 10 of us in a room, you're going to probably find something that we all do 10 different ways. And the fact that everyone's kind of got a different way to do it. I do not know everything, and the way I do it is not right all the time, but I'll tell you what, it's, you start hearing some of this stuff. I've had guys who'd never, I've walked on the job sites with DIYers where they've been doing something and I've thought, oh, that's actually a pretty good idea because just common sense told them to do it this way. Right. So when you get into this, the more of these classes, I suggest everyone take every class you can. I don't care what block you think you're going to go with. Go to every block training you can. Go to Fox Block, go to Nudura, go to this, Superform, Amic, whatever it is. Go to their training, and if it's an online training, take it. If it's an in-person training you can get to, take it. I just think that you've got more of a chance of seeing every scenario that could happen on a job site, which is a lot of what we're training them about. Is like, okay, it's pretty easy to stack blocks, right? It's pretty self-explanatory in a lot of ways. It's those intricacies of like what can go wrong is what we're really trying to teach for. It's like, hey, this is how you avoid an issue, right? This is how you make sure you're doing it correctly, not just throwing blocks up on top of each other.
Well, and the training that you're talking about, stick frame builders, like framers don't go through this.
Yeah, that's more training than the stick frame guys are using.
You have no way to, you're verifying by getting references, but like you call those people and stuff, like they're not there. They don't see the framing. They don't know. You can call other GCs that they work for. And for the most part, if they call you back and tell you yes or no, you're getting very little information. But like with this and having that card, that's more credibility than what really most general contractors.
Yeah,
have
and you
in
mentioned
stick
like the general contractor likes to see that. Let me tell you who the biggest pain is on the job site is inspectors, and they question this all the time. I've been on the phone when I was a territory manager. I covered 11 states, and I got calls from all 11 of them saying there's there's an inspector here, and he doesn't think we're doing it right, blah blah blah, or something. Right there, he wants to know.
He doesn't understand it.
He doesn't understand it. He wants specs. The one best I'd always get is they want engineering on the block. Well, the block's not the engineering part. He needs to care about the concrete and the rebar. The block could be a cereal box if we want it to be. We try to explain that, but having that gold card or that silver card or something that you can pull out to an inspector, I think could be super valuable. I mean, knowing that they have that power in their pocket. No, I get it. You don't understand. Like, let me talk to you about it. Here, I'm actually a certified, I'm a certified gold, installer. Let me tell you, I guarantee you that takes the confidence level in you way up, and it takes their stress level way down, and you got a way better chance of getting that green tag instead of that red tag. And having to,
And you just mentioned inspectors. The other thing that I've noticed in the life trainings we've been doing is what's even more valuable sometimes is the connections that are made within that room.
Agreed. Huge.
Because whether you're experienced ICF installer or not, this 4-hour class, it's best practices from A to Z. And who's showing up to the classes, and the class was designed for contractors, but a lot of the people that are showing up are engineers, architects, homeowners, electricians, plumbers, home inspectors, developers, people who are not necessarily installing the ICF, but are going to come across it and need to learn and understand how to work with that system. So it's all of a sudden you have the homeowner is in the room, and all of a sudden they connected with the architect, and all of a sudden they have the engineer in that room and the concrete guy who wants to learn about ICF.
Yeah.
They just made that connection.
Yeah.
So all of a sudden the project is coming together from the people in that room.
Right.
Yeah, it happens every single time we do a training. I mean, our last training class, we had people that came from Utah, from Washington, from Oregon, that drove in, to Idaho to come to this training class. And we had from, newbie, never having touched a block, looking into it, all the way up to guys that have been installing it for, a few years.
We had
foundations.
We had 2 guys that were installing ICF that week and literally stopped stacking to come to the class because they just wanted to make sure they were doing it better. They're like, they'd done a couple jobs, but they're like, well, we've never actually been to a class. I'd gone out to a job site and trained them, but they wanted to see the actual class. I mean, there's, the owner of the company was like, yes, definitely. Let's do that. Like, let's send you in there so you get all of this information and learn about, waterproofing and the do's and don'ts, because it is, like we said, it's relatively simple, but there's just those few things that you got to keep in mind, the little minutia that you've got to make sure that you're understanding.
And when you don't, it's when mistakes happen.
Yeah.
It's when you get a wall that's out of plumb and you can't fit a door frame. And that's when the builder who took the step to go into ICF says, I'll never do it again.
Correct.
Because the people installing the block were not educated. That's why it's so important for the industry to do more and more every day about training, because those are the little black spots that hurt the industry when somebody goes and messes up a job because they were not trained.
Yeah, I'm not as classy as you are, Alfonso. I refer to those as putting a turd in my backyard. Those are the guys. Those are the guys that drop a turd in my backyard, and I've been dealing with it for 20 years. Where literally people will say, It's so funny. There was one house in Eagle, Idaho. it's probably been 30 years ago now. It was before I was ever even in the business. And I still get people saying, yeah, my buddy his neighbor built a shop out of ICF and it fell over. And it had a bunch of voids in it. And this house ended up falling over, and it was just a shop, like barn thing. But like people still talk about it 30 years later, like it was the ICF's fault. And I'm like, this guy was an idiot that built it, and he basically ruined it for everybody. And you continue to see that. And especially for us that are trying to make this more mainstream with builders and trying to make this to where we've got more general contractors that are just like building subdivisions out of it, and getting really into it, is one bad experience, and they get jaded and they're done and they don't want to deal with it. And
but a wood structure falls
It's
over.
not only that.
A wood structure
It's not only
falls
that,
over,
God.
and nobody really pays attention to it.
yeah, we had a wood structure fall over in our town, and nobody, they didn't stop building houses out of sticks. But boy, one ICF, it gets put in crooked, and you hear about it all the time.
Well, yeah. Well, it's not only that builder who will never do it, but that builder goes every month to the Home Builders Association meeting where he meets with another 10, 20, 30 builders. And what does he have to say about ICF?
Right. Yep.
Unfortunately, typically the builder that does that is not a part of the association. So that's why the homeowner hired them, because they were cheaper and they could get there, and all the things that we talk about, when you're hiring a contractor, double check, verify, make sure they're, licensed or registered or have the proper training.
Yeah, well, I think the bigger picture of what you're doing, Alfonso, is like, this is something that helps obviously this is something that from a micro level, this is something that helps Fox Block become better or more competitive with their competitors. But realistically, you're making the whole industry better by spreading more education and more, installers out there, that are going to actually put up a better product and not put these turds in our backyard, not put these black marks on the industry. So, what you guys are doing is huge. Have you guys talked to, I know occasionally when they do a shared project in a certain area that you cover, I know Randy does a lot of speaking with, I've actually spoke at events with Randy for the ICFMA and for the NZRMCA. Have you been talking with them about doing something that's more industry wide, or has it pretty much stayed within the Fox Block world?
I've done work on behalf of the ICFMA.
Mm-hmm.
We collaborate, absolutely. And whenever there's an event, depending on the regional advisor who covers that area would go and present on behalf of the ICFMA. Right. Absolutely.
Right. Yeah. And I think I'd love to see us get something more industry wide. I know every block company wants to be, they want their guy, their block, they want to get the money, the sales off of it. But I think it's a bigger picture with some of this stuff as far as getting just the training out there. And I think I've told everybody on here, I'm like, everybody plays so well together. Like, it's a very friendly sandbox. I've in my years in this, I've run into one person that was a bad TM, bad territory manager that was talking trash on people, and he didn't last very long, right? He was gone. Most of us will all sit down, we'll have lunch together, we'll go grab drinks together, whatever, competing against each other with different block companies. So it's easy for us to come together at an NRMCA event or at an ICFMA event and put on a training that may have, the last one I did before I stepped out of my TM position, that was me, Nudura, and Randy Daniels from Fox Block, and we split it in thirds and took 3 different, portions of the training so that it was very equal. And I'd love to see us get more into something universal like that. I've got a couple people lined up from the ICFMA to come in and interview that want to get on the podcast. But gosh, you've done it so well that it's such a great model to work off of. I'd love to see something like this more spread out, but it's fitting. Fox, you guys are doing it right, and you guys have definitely got a really wide span of, area of impact. So it's really good that it's you guys doing it for sure.
And I think it's going to bring up the whole industry. Like we said, the more training we can put out there, the more knowledge we can share with people about ICF. I think it's going to help us. And right now the industry is growing really fast. And I think it is just going to help, catapult it. And the more we could actually grow faster if we had more knowledgeable installers.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And that means we sell more block, which pays the bills. So
Yes. Part of that primary installer training, once you go through it, it gives you an option that it says, are you open for employment?
Mm.
So if they click on that, we get a notification. He not only completed the training, but he's open to employment.
Mm.
Now I look at the region where he's at. I give him a phone call, how much you want to travel, and we're connecting them with local experienced installers.
Yeah, it's great.
That's awesome.
One conversation I had with an installer about, hey, what can we do next year to bring some more business? And he said, if you can find me the employees, I can get the work. So that's part of this new system where we connect, people who's gone through the training with ICF installers.
It's so smart because that is definitely something that gets asked along with that question that people ask, how do you pick a contractor? Is like, well, is there any way to go and find these qualified installers? Is there a list of them somewhere? Is there a website? Is there anything? And I always do tell them, I said, a lot of it is coming down to picking your block and then getting with your block rep and finding out who they suggest to use their block, and that they're going to have that network. And I don't disagree that maybe someday there's going to be, I think there's a few options out there online that, have tried. I don't know that they're, I've looked into them a little bit. I don't know that there's any great one-stop resources for ICF installers across the country. But I think it still goes back to like what you're doing where, call your local rep and ask them, hey, who do you suggest? Because that's a reference right there. If you've got a rep, usually they've seen most of their jobs because if they're calling on these people, this is their customer. A lot of times they're on the job site. They get to see their work. They know how much they bought. They know, how much activity they're doing. So that's a good way to get those qualified installers. But I think we're ready to jump into our questions here.
Yeah. Well, and we've kind of been talking about this the whole time because we're not necessarily talking about Fox blocks themselves. We're talking about your guys' training. So Alfonso, kind of go into your pitch for getting people in there. Why should these installers, homeowners, builders do the Fox block training?
It just gives you a good, broad understanding of the process, best practices in the ICF world. That primary installer class is 4 to 6 hours. So we go in depth on every step of the process from stacking the forms to the rebar, to the waterproofing, to how to install a window. And it's just really important to know those things because one little deviation from what we believe is best practices could mean a future leak on a basement of a homeowner that is going to cost him thousands to fix 2, 3, 5 years from now. So, training is everything.
It is. And then is there a cost to attend your guys' training?
We do not charge for any of our trainings. We believe that we want to teach as many people as we can, and we want to put the barriers out of the way so they can come. So we do not charge for any of our trainings.
That's awesome.
Perfect.
All right. Question number 2. Can you tell us a memorable experience at one of your training classes or just in your experience as a territory manager?
So I think my most memorable experience, probably not to do with training. With training, I fly in from Colorado to a training I had in Sedona. I thought that was pretty cool. But as far as most memorable, I went to Albuquerque working with Habitat for Humanity of Greater Albuquerque. And when I got to the job site, I saw a brigade 65 and up guys, 65, 70, 75, 80. This was so inspiring. And the name of this team was SWAT. And they wear their shirts, and everybody's so proud of being SWAT. And SWAT means Special Work Assignment Team.
Wow.
And these are the guys who learned the ICF and ran with it. And it was so inspiring to see these guys from all walks of life, from blue collar to pharmacists and doctors that are retired and are doing this out of their own goodwill, not getting paid, but working like like a well-machined brigade, like if they were employees. So that was really inspiring to see that from those guys and how good they work together for $0.
Well, and it's fun, like especially when you get a good crew like that wants to do it. I did one similar in Tucson, Arizona, and it was just like when you watch a bunch of people that want to learn it and are excited about it. It's so cool when it just like clicks for them. And I mean, I came back, I said I could have left at lunchtime because after lunch, they all were basically kind of pushing me out of the way. Like, yeah, we got this. We listened, we know, and you just watch them like sit a well-oiled machine. You go watch them go. And I remember I had some, they were guys, cause I was giving them crap that a lot of times my framers are my harder customers because they want to measure everything. And I'm like, no, there's lines on the block. We gotta line the webs up. We gotta, it doesn't require all this stuff. They want to cut everything to the exact 16th of an inch. I'm like, no, we're gonna, and it was funny because it was almost, they almost got a chip on their shoulder because I said that, and they're like, we're gonna show you how good framers are, and they just took and ran. And it's the same deal. You see these guys that really are. It's an attitude a lot of times. I mean, that's anything in any job probably, but when we're doing these training classes, you get a bunch of guys who are excited to learn it. And I mean, I don't know what the backstory now or the since then what they've done, but I mean, think about how many houses these guys can build now just off of that training. They've done 6. That's awesome, dude. That is so awesome. I mean, that's that thing where it just feels good. Like you did it. You did something that just now has done 6 houses. I mean, that's awesome.
All right. And you usually ask the last question.
So the third and final question we ask is, what are you excited about? And this can be generic. I mean, this can come from, what you're excited about in training, something you're excited about in, products in the industry, up and coming, anything that you think it related to the ICF industry that you're really excited about. What's got you excited?
Well, guys, I'm excited about the codes getting more and more strict every day.
They're coming to us. They're coming to us.
Yeah, they are. I got a call the other day from a region that I cover, telling me, one of my dealers telling me that they passed a code making the frost line deeper.
Mm-hmm.
So that's gonna help the industry because now it makes even more sense to do an insulated stem wall because now they have to go deeper. And, we're all heading towards more energy efficiency and sustainability. So the more the codes get more strict, it's only making ICF more and more desirable and feasible.
Yeah, it becomes a no-brainer. Yeah. It's like you almost have, I've said it for a while. They're coming to us. Like we've been trying to, go out there and push people into this industry and try to and a lot of us have been doing a long time. It's been pushing a boulder uphill. I mean, it's not the easiest thing to sell. And it's just such a change in the last, 5 years, all of a sudden, where you've got people going, yeah, I'd seen it. I wasn't ready to make the change, but now I'm going to have to do so much stuff with CI, continuous insulation and vapor barriers, all this different stuff that's coming up that they're going, well, now it just makes sense. It's just a no-brainer now. And that's exciting for our industry. And that's, I think, what's making it, the fastest growing construction method in the world right now. And it's just because, thank you to the codes and stuff that are out there for doing that. But, and we talk about resilience too. I mean, you cover some areas where you got to worry about, tornadoes or hurricanes and different things like that. And I think, between the insurance codes and the codes and the insurance, you got insurance companies that are saying, you're not building another stick frame house right here where it's going to get torn down again in a few years and we're going to have to pay again. And I think a lot of places are going to start saying, we have the house to build that will not get torn down.
We have the solution.
We have a solution. You have to use it. And I mean, that's going to be exciting for us too. So it'll be super, super cool. So, well, we've hit it. I know, like I said, every time we get someone on, they always go, ooh, 30 minutes. That's going to take, I don't know if I can talk for that long. And we're at 35 now. So we did it. We always seem to do it. So thank you so much for coming on, Alfonso. I mean, it's literally, You're definitely one of the guys on my bucket list of guys to have on this podcast. When we came up with this idea, it was just, I respect what you're doing and your passion for the training side of things. And I try to emulate what you do because we're doing the same thing with this podcast because we're passionate about training people and making sure that people are doing ICF right and that they're seeing that all the values of it. And I think you guys have just taken that to another level with your training program. And like I said, everybody that talks to you feels your passion and for the industry and especially even specifically about the training side. So you've done just a really, really good job out there, and kudos to you, and know that your work is not being, for naught. It's definitely, I've talked to several people that have come to me and said, yeah, do you know Alfonso? I talked to him and blah, blah, it's great. So we appreciate it. And it gives us just more information for us to put out via the podcast. And
I want to know, just for our listeners, you said there's an online training. Where can our listeners find the FoxBlock online training?
Just go to foxblocks.com, click on training.
Perfect.
I'll put a link in the show notes for that too, so you can actually go. I'll put Alfonso's contact info. I will put a link to their training classes. Probably put a link to probably the YouTube channel or something too. I'll look it up. I usually try to put a few different links for people to see information about it in different ways. But I think it's, we'll get that out there. But anything in closing that we left out or anything before we bail out of here, Alfonso?
I think we touched on everything. Training.
Yeah, exactly. learn more. Sell ICF, Don't. We're not, man. We got, we were looking at our list of to-dos and we were like, oh my God, we got, we're doing 3 or 4 recordings this week. And it's, there's so many things we want to get out there and so many things, back to our listeners, please reach out to us. Like, that's what's keeping this thing going. I mean, the fuel behind this thing is the DMs we get, the emails we get. And I apologize if I haven't got to you. I'm going through the emails usually every Monday trying to get through, but we are just getting really, really good activity. Everything from I love the good job emails. We've had emails, answering questions I had on here.
Yeah. Filling in the words when you couldn't think of it.
Yeah.
Well, and you don't even know this yet, but so we just launched, we launched a new website, but we have a whole page dedicated to the podcast on our website. And after doing our listener questions, I went and added a thing to the website so that listeners can submit their questions on the podcast page, so that they'll come in a special email, and so we should be able to see them.
I just want everybody to please share the podcast. This is what's going to get the word out, and it's going to get Alfonso's word out. It's going to get everybody's word out more is by you sharing the podcast. If you've got any people, contractors, DIY, anybody that that's interested in ICF, that's why we're doing the podcast, is just to get the information out to people in a very laid back way that they can take it all, at their own pace. Every episode's listed by what what we talk about, so that it should be pretty easy to go through the playlist and make sure that you're grabbing what you need. So please do that. Check us out at Build with ICF on Instagram. buildwithicf.com is our website, and you can go to info, send us an email at info@buildwithicf.
And pretty soon you'll be able to search that on YouTube, and we will be starting to post all of our stuff up there on YouTube. So
making the switch. If anybody is who doesn't know, if you're listening to your podcast on Google Podcast and it just went dead, they've made the move officially over to YouTube Music now. So there is no Google Podcast anymore. If that disappeared from your phone, then you need to go download the Google Music app. So we're on there too. So we'll keep doing that. But anything we can help with, guys, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. We'll continue to do what we're doing. I know Alfonso's going to continue doing what he's doing. So we love that. But I think that's it.
Yeah. Just thank you, and keep sharing the podcast.
We'll see you on episode 21.
Thank you, guys.